I think a lot of people don't know this and about us, in that John and I met in architecture school, undergraduate.
Yeah.
And I had a degree in architectural history from NYU. And I was on my way to get my master's at Harvard in architectural history. And I had been an artist painting major my whole young life. And then I realized I went to Bard College, and I realized I didn't want to become a painter and be in something involved in just Nancy. And so I started studying art history. And then Bard had a matriculation after 2 years. And they said, if you're going to study art history, you can't stay at Bard. It was a much smaller school. And they said, either you go to number one, NYU, or you go to Yale. So I went to NYU. I moved to a suburban New Jersey girl, moved to New York City, and got my degree in architectural history. So I was on my way. It was August before I was going to Harvard, and this light bulb went off in my head, and I said, I can combine the historical and my artistic self, which had always been there, and I want to be an architect. So it was an era before there were helicopter moms and people were so involved. And I said, I'm not going to Harvard. So my mother called Harvard, and they said, well, the architecture school is full. So Nancy can come for a year, and then she can apply to the School of Architecture. So if it was today, there's not a parent alive who would say, you're going. But my mother, station wagon, country squire Ford, from New Jersey, Montclair, New Jersey.
Painting a picture.
Said, I was this strong-willed kid. And so we called every architecture school in the New York metro area. And it was August. The only school that would consider speaking to me was City College, School of Architecture. Mm-hmm. So drive up in the country squire. They look at my portfolio and they accept me. I gave up Harvard and started at City College. And that's where I met John. John was he looked like John Travolta, like an Italian stallion, wore platform shoes, and in the winter wore this raccoon coat that a woman professor who he had a small liaison with.
Oh, goodness.
He was like an iridescent shirt down to here. But he was the top student at City College. So the thing is, like in the Jewish religion, which my background is Jewish, but, is that it was beshert, because it's where John and I met, we fell in love, and then he went on to Harvard, to do graduate work. But that's how we met. And
beautiful.
And it was like this, we knew we had shared interests, but we're so different in what we did, in our personalities. And so we worked separately for a while. Mm-hmm. John went on to work with at the New York City Planning Commission, then went to work for Jack Robertson, who had been head of the City Planning Commission, and joined with Peter Eisenman. So it was a firm called Eisenman Robertson that was very academic and amazing. I only wanted to work for Richard Meyer. I graduated, and so I had interviewed with them. They called and they said, you got the job. And I realized that they didn't talk to me about salary. So I went back to their office and I talked about, well, what will the salary be? And they said, oh, there's no salary. There's, because at that time, interns and first years worked without money, and I couldn't afford it. I was self-supporting, which is another story. But so my professor was Brad Perkins from Perkins and Will, who became Perkins Eastman. And he was my professor, and he said, come work for me. And he offered me a huge amount of money, which was $24,000.
That was a huge amount of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, right back
and so
then.
I went the more established big firm, and John went to the smaller design firm, and then they didn't make a go of it. I was working on a big, high-rise project, and I said, let's see if John wants to come. And so we worked on a project together, and we found it was like, we thought either it's going to be great or it's going to be horrible.
Kill each other, right?
And
right.
And it was like magic.
It was great.
It was like magic. And from that moment, we said, someday we'll have our own firm. So we did our journeyman's, and then we started our firm in 87. And the little thing I'm just going to tell you, because as friends, So John
And the rest of the world.
No. And I was a partner with Elliottia, with the firm we were working for. Brad joined Elliottia. It was Perkins, Attia and Perkins. And so we decided it was time. And because I was the managing partner there, very young, early 20s, and Ellie only wanted to design. He did 101 Park Avenue. He was at Philip Johnson before that, did all of the modern...
101 California.
101 California, Crystal Cathedral. So I agreed to stay a year to find a replacement for me and make sure the firm was okay. We started with a 90,000 square foot printing company on Hudson Square.
Hudson Square.
John was working out of our second bedroom in Long Island City. And we were there when we were the only English-speaking people. It was all Italian, all Greek. It was like living in Europe. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So I was doing a project for the Models.
And Hearts was involved.
And every time I would go into the meeting, Leonard Stern would pull me aside and say, can you take a look at this? And he was doing this huge project on the East River, and he was working with another firm. He would say, they can't seem to get enough units with water view. Can you give me some advice? And after like 6 times, I said, Leonard, John is in our second bedroom. We're starting a firm. Give us a shot. And a week later, he comes back, and Leonard says, let's try it. So gives us a 1.5 million square foot project in Long Island City.
Beautiful.
So suddenly our apartment in Long Island City, there's 5 draftsmen. We had to set up tables in our living room. And every night I'd come home and there'd be like 47 coffee cups in the sink and stuff. So when John is talking about the April 1st, when we really started, we said, I finally said, we have to get these people out of here.